Body Chairman Eric Pickles.
Woo! Well, thank you very much. You may have slightly detect I'm getting ready to advertise Collenberg Lager, probably the best lager in the world. My voice.
Shame.
So if it stops, forgive me. I just wanted to say, Claire in her absence, Stephen and Peter, thank you very much for organising this. This is proper activism. This is what it's all about. Making contact with the electorate, moving those people who we need to move towards the Conservatives. I bring with you a couple of interesting facts. First of all, there's going to be an opinion poll in tomorrow's Guardian, which suggests that we're 17% ahead of the Labour Party. Woo! Of course, we pay no attention to individual polls. I think we might be allowed. There's no champagne here, is there? We might be allowed the odd tincture this evening. And the second thing is, do you remember that guy, Mr. Brown, the Prime Minister? He went on to Labour website and he said, "I'm as keen as mustard." I am actually paraphrasing what he said. "I'm as keen as mustard. Bring it on. I want to see some TV debates." Right? Well, there's a possibility of a TV debate tomorrow. The Speakers' Conference on Diversity in Politics is taking place. The original idea was that all three political leaders, that's our chap, David, Cleggy, and Brown, we're all going to appear together for an hour. I mean, that doesn't sound like a terribly bad idea, except, guess who's pulled out?
Bottle of Brown.
Bottle of Brown. Bottle of Brown has bottled again. So instead of a free debate lasting an hour between three interesting people, at least two interesting people, we're going to have the party leaders just doing 20-minute slots each. That's got to tell you everything. This is a man who's in favour of open debate, who's convinced he has this great clunking fist that can defeat anybody. And so when it actually comes down to the moment, he's nowhere to be seen. And he's nowhere to be seen because of the work that you folks put in, because of all the effort. And believe me, it will make a difference. You know, I said at the conference, this election is not in the bag. And whether it says 17% lead or not, it is not in the bag. And the way in which we will win this election is by persuading particular people in particular seats to put their trust in the Conservative Party. And that isn't going to happen by anything grandiose or a single speech. It's by people like you talking to them on the phone or visiting them. And I'm really grateful for that. I'll be very happy to answer any questions you may have. I've been in politics a long time, so if I don't know the answer, I'll make up something that sounds reasonably convincing.
What would you say the three main policy battlegrounds are going to be for the election in May?
Okay. NHS.
NHS.
NHS. NHS. And that's against the background of how do we treat the deficit. 1.4 trillion pounds debt over 5 years. Now, would anybody care to guess how many notes there are on 1.4 trillion?
A lot.
Yeah, yes, a lot. I'm very good at that. Now, there, obviously, a merchant banker is there of a future. Who'd like to have a guess?
11.
Correct. 11 there are. How disappointing, you got it absolutely right. That's a lot of money. Just think what that did to our poster. You know, the poster of the baby. Mother's eyes, father's nose, Gordon's debt. We said it was 17,500. We've had to pull the lot because it's now 23,000. And that's just in less than a year. It's truly extraordinary. And what we needed to, I think, to explain to people was that the debt was not a byproduct of the recession. It was one of the problems of the recession that we needed to deal with. So yes, I think, but I think we need to demonstrate that when we start that process, we're going to protect the most vulnerable. Anybody else like to ask a question?
Why does it seem that Labour's getting such a free ride for not having a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty?
Well, I suspect because it's more interesting what our position is, and I think you saw what happened at the conference. And it was really interesting that the press said that we were going to tear ourselves to pieces, and they said that the delegates were asking this, representatives were asking for all these kind of things. But they stopped saying that once the representatives came. So the representatives were absolutely committed to winning the election and to be talking about things that matter. When the time comes, if it's ratified, then you'll be the first to know what any change of policy. But I stood at an election at which I promised my electorate a vote. So did my Labour opponent, so did my Liberal Democrat opponent, and both of them just simply ratted on.
I know that Argent, who the company that produce all the local papers for the London boroughs, have held a straw poll recently, and they put London as the place in Britain where the most swing of seats will be. What's your sort of view on that? How much would you read into that?
Well, I mean, that's probably right because of our relatively poor performance in London over a number of years. It wasn't until Boris came on the scene that we started to win in serious numbers. If you look back at the last two elections, the swing, last three elections, the swing against the Conservatives was greater in London than anywhere else, and the swing back to us has been less. So yes, you will by the nature of things, but it will be won in that great triangle along the M62, dropping down the M6, M5, there, plus London, plus the West Country. And it really, in truth, I mean, difficult to get across it. Don't get obsessed by the polls. Our traditional problem is that we tend to do extremely well in our areas, and rather outpoll Labour, and we don't poll well in where we need to take. And what happened last June was we actually, for the first time for a long time, outpolled our poll position in terms of the national share. So it's what happens in these specific marginals that will make the difference. That's why what you're doing tonight is so important. It doesn't matter enormously how well I'd like half of the folks in Brentford and Oldham to turn out in reasonable numbers, but if I increase my majority, and my majority goes down slightly, it isn't going to really affect the result of the election. I think the gentleman here.
Yeah, this was just a general question, changing the topic. What do you think of Nick Griffin's appearance on Question Time this week? I mean, how do you see it? Cause
I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch. I mean, as you may or may not know, I spent a lot of time fighting the BNP and their predecessors, the National Front. All my political life been involved in anti-racism. My view is the only way to deal with a racist is to confront a racist. And I am not as upset as some of the Labour Party this is taking place. We've got Saida will be attending from our side, bright, articulate, young, female, Muslim, all the things I'm sure Nick Griffiths admires in life. It's going to be interesting. I don't think this guy's going to be a pushover. He's quite different from most people in the sense that his knuckles don't scrape on the ground when he's walking. He's an articulate man, and therefore by the nature a more dangerous man. But what he represents, and I say this advisedly, is all that is nasty in politics, all that is violent. You know, I don't hate Nick Griffin, I don't hate Brown. And all he generates is hatred for his fellow citizens based on their race, or based on their colour, or based on their ethnic background or religion. And that's, to me, is anathema. You should never judge somebody just on that basis. And I'm pretty convinced, Yeah, it may be one of the few occasions when I'll be rooting for Jack Straw. We'll just have to see.